Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of art, it's the Tenet Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson, coming to you from the 40 West Arts District in Lakewood, Colorado. And joining me from his podcast studio, nestled near the gateway to the Black Hills of South Dakota, you know him as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, co-host extraordinaire, Wes Brown.
Todd, how you doing? Oh my God, I'm going 100 miles an hour today. I don't know why.
It's a good thing you don't do drugs, dude.
I know.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm on speed. Man, I haven't dropped anything, and I'm already like speeding like a
just zipping along.
just zipping along. I think I'm excited because we finally now know who Banksy is.
Was that even real?
I don't
know.
Think that's bullshit.
Do you think it's bullshit?
I think it's another. Who knows though, man.
All right.
I think it's bullshit. I'm not.
You're gonna hold out. You're a holdout.
And I don't think we need to know.
Nah.
Why do we need to know?
I'm not even a big fan, man. I always like Block LaRap better. He just kind of copied him, and I don't know. I've never been a giant fan.
Okay.
So there you go.
There we go. So we won't talk about it tonight. How are you doing? I'm doing great. How are you doing, Todd?
You know what? I smell like smoke. I think it's the universe telling me, dude, because it's been a little bit stressful, as you well know.
Yeah.
And I occasionally think, I see somebody smoking, and I haven't smoked since my late 20s.
Right.
But I love the process of smoking. I've talked about it before.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I still have dreams about smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think it's the universe telling me don't smoke. But the reason I smell like smoke is my wife was heating up her lunch, and she was reheating some green chili that she had made. And she threw the tortilla on the cast iron griddle and walked away from it. And down where our guest is from today, they've had a large fire that's burning, but I actually smelled smoke today because we had the windows open because it's been so warm.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I'm in my office getting ready to come to the studio, and there's like all the smoke that's rolling into my office. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And it was this tortilla.
It
doesn't take very long for cast iron to heat up. I mean, it's a great way to heat up a tortilla or to make tortillas. Yeah. But man, you don't want to walk away from it. She just like, boom, gone.
Right.
They're going to read about this in the history books where the amazing tortilla fire of 2026 destroyed Denver.
That would be an interesting, like, historical thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd almost be happy to be a part of that.
Right. So here's another side interesting. You know, my mom lived with me for a while before she passed, and she was an avid smoker all her life. I mean, the only reason she quit smoking is because she couldn't smoke in the house, and she couldn't get outside anymore because she couldn't walk. So anyway, she quit asking to go out and smoke. But every now and then I'll be sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden I get this whiff of like cigarette smoke fills my nose or whatever. And I think, shit, my mom is visiting or something.
Right.
So
for sure.
That's where my head goes. But it's just the weirdest thing. It's like all of a sudden I'll be just sitting there watching TV, and then the smell of cigarettes will fill the air, and then dissipate.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and smoking is so analog anymore. Everybody's a vapor or like a nicotine thing. And yeah, it's always interesting when I see people smoking, anymore. It's like, I don't know, I think you're seeing somebody with a cell phone all the time. It's, but yeah, when you see somebody with like an actual cigarette, I don't even know. I don't even know what a pack of cigarettes costs these days, but I'm sure it's cheaper to vape. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. No, they're expensive. I don't know how much they are either. I think they're over $5 a pack.
Oh yeah, at least.
It's just crazy to think. You gotta really want to smoke to want to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think I can smoke because I was having like almost this allergic reaction to smoke these days. Like fire. Yeah. I don't think my lungs could handle it because I was feeling almost asthmatic this afternoon. So that kills that desire to smoke.
Okay, just because inquiring minds want to know, anywhere roughly between 8 to 10.25 a pack.
Holy
crap. Cigarettes? Wow.
Yeah, Missouri is over $14 because of the high tax they put on it.
Holy
I know
shit.
that Europe.
Or no, that's New York. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah,
Right.
Europe did that years ago, I guess, to curb people from smoking. And, we all probably remember the smoking sections at restaurants. And you could, I'm too young to, and probably you guys smoking on the plane. It's just so wild.
Yeah, I remember having smoking sections when you would travel on a plane. And it was so dumb because it's like, where does the smoke go?
Yeah, there's no smoke.
It just fills the cabin.
Yeah, you just
You're
go,
just
so
in
you
a
sit in the
special seat
back.
where you could actually light up, but you're all smoking. Just
Right.
just one big flying ashtray.
I couldn't even imagine in a plane, man. I rode in a plane. It's been a couple years ago, but it actually still had the ashtray, and I was like, man, this is so wild.
Yeah. And just in case, because you're both in Colorado, right, Brian? You're in Colorado,
yeah, I'm in
right?
the Springs, Colorado Springs.
According to this website, cigarette prices by state 2026, Colorado's $10.28 a pack.
Yeah.
So anyway,
well, that was, and all that was designed to pay for road infrastructure and this and that, and of course, none of that ever happened. So
I was gonna say somebody's like making out because the
Yeah.
quality of our roads here in Colorado sucks.
I know, exactly.
Probably just goes in your general fund, and then they fund all sorts of weird shit with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Lotto, wasn't Lotto supposed to all go to like wildlife? And I think it line share does, but I think that also part of it goes to the general fund. But anyway, there we go. Wow.
There we go.
Yeah. Cigarettes.
Welcome to the smoking podcast.
That's right. Everything you want to know about smoking.
That's right.
All right, let's do this before we get into the actual discussion, the serious discussion. I got a couple things I need to talk about.
Okay.
One being Art and Ag 2026. It's our annual art festival that we host with the Fleischer Family Farm here in Lakewood. This is our 5th year, and we're putting on 2 events, June 20th and September 12th. So mark your calendars and come out and get some local produce and support a bunch of phenomenal artists. And if you're an artist that would like to participate in one of our events this year, hit us up. You can DM us through our socials, or you can email me direct at todd@toddpearson.com. All right. You've already heard him speaking in our discussion about
mystery man.
Who is this mystery man? And you can't see him, but he's wearing a mask.
Yep. Just over my eyes.
There you go.
Or at least a Black Sabbath shirt.
Yeah, so, right. Yeah.
He is making his 2nd appearance on Tenet. Right. He's an incredible photographer and mixed media artist. We talked with him back in 2022. And if you want to go back and listen to that episode, it's episode 123 in our archive. He is the owner, photography, and visual arts program coordinator and instructor at Shutter Strum in Colorado Springs. You can check out Shutter Strum at the website, shutterandstrum.com, and you can follow Shutter Strum on Instagram at @shutter_and_strum. That's a mouthful.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back, Brian. Tryon.
Thank you, guys. It's like I said, it's a pleasure and an honor, and I'm a big fan of yours, Todd and Wes. I'll get to know you and become a fan too.
God, it seems like it's so long ago, but I know you were on a group podcast with some students last time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, photography kid. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's nice to have you back. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're doing okay, and in this crazy times that we talked about. But
right.
So.
Well, it feels like it was just yesterday, but it's hard to believe it's been almost 4 years.
Right.
So wow, I think time just kind of like during COVID and after has just been this weird vortex. I don't know. Yeah, it's like I always refer. Yeah, it was pre-COVID or COVID. When I'm referencing the past anymore, it's weird.
Yeah,
I want to kick this off like we do a lot of times and have you talk about the kind of stuff that you do, a little bit about yourself and where you're originally from.
So I am a Colorado native. Born at Fort Carson, Colorado in the early 70s. My family was brought here, obviously, because the big military base, and my grandpa settled here. They were all from the Midwest and Kansas and Oklahoma and area. But we settled here. I grew up here, moved away a couple times, and I've always came back. seen a lot of growth and a lot of changes in our city and in our state. I was in the education field and for about 16 plus years. Started off as a custodian, worked, and then went up and at a traditional high school, and then I got a job at a alternative high school, charter school from District 11 in Colorado Springs here as a student advocate, advocating for students that were quote unquote called at risk. And at risk usually, there's a lot of terms or a lot of definitions, but at risk in the education world basically meant you were truant, you weren't coming to school. But they're, in traditional schools, they don't ever cover or they don't even get down to the bottom of why aren't you coming to school, so it's just you're just truant and you're at risk to not graduate, and give them their test numbers and their scores and all that fun stuff. So anyways, when I started working at community prep school, I had to pinch myself. It was a really amazing job. And I was at-risk kid growing up too, the typical cliche, I was, I didn't have any positive role models. I was a really dysfunctional family. I struggled with addiction and alcoholism. And when I started working there, I was able to start advocating for students and meeting them where they're at and figuring out why are you at risk? Why are you not coming to school? And, and it's trauma, it's addiction, it's homelessness, it's just being disconnected, it's anxiety, there's so many different things. So that stoked me out because, you can pinpoint of why a 12th grade student is reading at a first grade level and why are they in 12th grade now? Because they've been pushed along, there's no student left behind and that kind of stuff. And really wasn't doing them any favors in life. I'm in recovery. I've been in recovery for 18 years now. Was at the school. I was an addiction counselor. Was part running the outdoor program. I built the darkroom. I built the photo classes. We had a gallery. Todd had been to the gallery there. We had a gallery in the basement. So basically, my big thing as a teacher and as where I was meeting these kids is it was a mental health thing. Okay, let's figure out why you're here. Just like with addiction, it's drinking and drugs are just the symptom of your problem. Why are you doing all this stuff is where it really truly lies. So same with working with these, the youth that I was working with and I still work with. It's finding out where they are in life and how you can help them. And I think music, art, photography, and all that is a very good replacement and a weird healthy replacement of all the negative things we do to escape or things we get involved in, wrapped into. So I started working there, quickly became a teacher, and I worked there for about 8 years. As I got sober and stuff too, I was music, art, photography, and I say art and photography, it's the same thing, but just different, splitting that. But and skateboarding were all my passions in life, and addiction took me away from all that kind of stuff, and you just dive deep into this black pit. And as I got sober, I was realizing, okay, I need to fill those round holes with the round pegs and not the square pegs. And I remembered photography, art, skateboarding, music, all that kind of stuff was what my passions were. So I dove headfirst back into that, and slowly started building up a portfolio and started getting art shows. And I was pretty prolific in a way where I was able to do 3 or 4 or 5, 6 different shows a year. I did that for many years. But then going back to bringing that to the youth that I work with, it was a really good way to work with mindfulness and being in the moment and, art and photography and all that kind of stuff. Really helps with that kind of thing. I was always a big advocate of let's get to your mental health problem, because you're not going to go to your math class. You're not going to go to your history class. You're not going to be successful in these classes that you have to graduate high school. So let's start here. And what I knew best was art, photography, skateboarding, and all that stuff. So, and I still use that as a way to, work through your problems, learn how to be a better community member, be a community member, and be, an advocate for your community. And doing that through art and, everything that I just discussed is what I did at the school. And then now what I do at Shutter Strum here. I guess that's maybe answers your question on that.
Yeah, for sure. So the one question I got, because you were at an alternative school and you were, what you sound like you're doing, you weren't just like an art teacher. You were let's tackle difficult subjects and why you're here. And so do you keep or have you kept in contact with any of your students, and can you relate some of the impact that maybe you and your program has had on students?
Yeah, it's amazing. There's a lot of losses. A lot of days you just lose kind of when you work in the school system or working with the students that we've worked with. But I've been very fortunate. Like a handful of students still keep in touch with me. They tell me how I really saved their life, or how positive an impact I had on them. I had a student come out here for Christmas time who now lives in Washington State, that we met for coffee, and they just kind of, and this is a person I knew, we worked together a lot with photography and different things. We talked about a lot, but I didn't know how much the impact was that I offered. And then, some of these kids now being in the, 16-year career, have families of their own or kids, and they come in, they'll either find me here now at Shutter Strum, or they'll hit me up on social media, and, I'm sober now, or I did this, or I've get to follow my path, or even it's still, I'm still not doing well, but I do value and remember what you told me, and just keeping it real with these kids that you work with is, I think, and a big impact as well, because schools and a person, they need safe spaces and safe people. Yeah, like I said, I just been really fortunate of, like, I've had, so Shutter and Strum is right next door to What's Left Records in Colorado Springs here, where like we share a hallway. That's how close we are. So they do live shows there, and there'll be kids that'll show up. I'll go over there and see them at the shows, or they pop over. I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen even since like when I worked at the first high school I worked at, 16 years ago. Yeah, it's really cool, to get that feedback. I just, I didn't plan my day of like, I'm going to save somebody's life. I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to go into it like just not have any expectations on what's going to happen. And it just generally works into a super positive vibe. I've often joked, 'cause I'm a film photographer mainly, but we had a darkroom at this other school, and then I have a darkroom here at Shutter and Strum. So that's kind of been my, I don't know, man, like office, where I get to really know the students, or if we're doing photo walks, or, doing all hands on learning stuff. I just see the impact in that now too, where even if it's like, I work with Casa down here, and a couple other places with foster kids. And it's like, I'll have one session with them, and they're really excited to come back. They're bummed when they can't come, if they can't come back. So you see it, like, sometimes there's an immediate reaction as well. So I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of, kids that'll just show up. I ran into another kid the other night, at a show at the record store, and, we had a really good conversation. Another kid, he wasn't one of my students, but he was friends with students that just found out he had type 1 diabetes. So my youngest son does as well. So I was able to, like, kind of, talk through it with him, because that's a scary life or death situation. And yeah, and and being able to, I would never be able to do this as an addict, I mean, so just being sober and being able to have the life experiences I've had too. And I'm not the one that says, well, I read this on page 34 of this book, and this is how you're cured, and this is how you're doing this is, I know it by life experiences. And also I've educated myself, and I've tried to be a lifelong learner, so where I know it by living it, and also I can say, oh, and also on page 34 of this book, So yeah, so yeah, I just, like I said, I'm just very fortunate to, have these kids that do reach back out, and I find out where they are. Some kids, don't make it, and I can't count on two hands and remember how many kids we've lost, or or even in jails or institutes. But even there, you hope you're just planting a seed that blossoms at some point, where like, oh shit, I remember what so and so told me. I remember what Brian told me, and maybe that makes an impact later on in your life. Because, man, when I was a kid, man, I know I'm 53 now. You still can't tell me, to do a lot of things. But it's maturity and growth, and, like, being open minded.
Right.
So have you always seen yourself as kind of a little bit of an outlier?
Oh yeah, I remember. Even at a young age, I just, nothing was, authority figures were, my bag. I was pretty mischievous. We were doing a lot of reckless stuff, and I got suspended in high school for not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, I feel like I've been, I want to say, empathetic to, like, the shit that goes on in the world, even when I was in my addiction and my alcoholism, some of that stuff went away, but I always felt like I had a soul, of some sort.
How long were you kind of ingrained into the whole alcohol and drug thing?
It started at a very young age. I got high for the first time in fourth grade. My cousins got me high. Drinking, was a thing. Like, oh, here, you can sip on a beer, pass it around. So I grew up in that's the family I grew up in, a very dynamic alcoholic family, very chaotic family. So that's what I knew. So I became a dad at 17. And I realized then that I had a problem. I would say I was probably a full blown alcoholic by the age of 16.
Wow.
And then I got married, had a kid, moved away, became straight edge, playing in straight edge hardcore bands and doing that kind of stuff. And then once I moved back, it was back onto the races. So from probably 16, and I got sober, I think, I don't know if I have to do the math, in my late 30s. So it was quite a long, long road.
What was the epiphany that you had that made you decide that this
I
could
mean, I don't.
continue?
It really was. So I'll just tell you, like, I was in the shower one day. I had a friend of mine that told me about AA. My wife was talking about, doing a living will, all kinds of stuff. And, and I mean, I was facing jail time. I was facing, this and that. And, none of that stuff is what made me quit. I went to a couple AA meetings, and I got an earful of some of these dudes talking about, that I could relate to. And then I just was in the shower one night, and I just had this like breakdown, like, man, this is ridiculous, and I kind of was bawling and crying in the shower and was like, okay, this needs to end. I think I want to live. I always told myself if I lived till I was 40 years old, I would figure out another way to, end life. And I was trying to do it, through alcohol and drugs. But yeah, it was just this, like this something in me snapped, and it was, I just wanted to live and be there for my kids and my family. And, I just was done. That's the best way I could describe it. And, I found it. And then, what it is and with anything, you got to find it in yourself to, to quit. You could tell me, I can, be told by so many people and this, but like, whatever it was that I found it in myself, after hitting thousands of bottoms, they say, the bottoms will help you, I mean, and maybe it did help me eventually, but like, yeah, just something internally clicked where I was like, I gotta live, and then I drank for a few more nights, went to a couple of these meetings, drank one more time, and that was it. And grateful I did. It was one of the best life, decisions I've ever made.
Wow. That's crazy, man. Were you doing photography that whole time when you were growing up and while you were struggling?
My grandma was the photographer of the family. So, I mean, I don't think the kids I work with don't know any about it. Like, hey, do you guys have family photo albums? Like, what's that? And I remember going through my grandma's family photo albums, and she was the archivist of the family. So she always had a camera. So I would do that. I was writing later in life, like my early teens, 15 years old. I was doing a skate article and photography for a little magazine called Mosh Pit Magazine. That was a local thing. But then in my addiction, like I said, it just took me from all that stuff.
Wow.
I mean, music. Music is like the holy grail of my life. And skateboarding and photography, and it just took me away from all that. So no, I wasn't. I did a little bit mid '90s. I was bartending at an Irish pub, and I was kind of documenting shows and stuff. But it was nothing serious. It was more just I was trying to find that round peg for the round hole again. And no, but yeah, no, it definitely it just was the point where I just drank all day every day till I passed out, and did it every day. And yeah, so I did not do much art or do anything productive in those years, but other just to be a drunk and an alcohol drug addict.
You moved away from the Springs and
Yeah.
then moved back. What is it about the Springs that you like?
I don't know, man. We're creatures of habit, and it was a comfortable space. I had family here, my family that was, still alive. We're still here. I still had friends here, and it was just comfortable. So I moved to Omaha, Nebraska, which was a rad. I loved Omaha. It was such a cool, there was a lot of culture. You wouldn't, people like, oh, Omaha. I'm like, no, but there was a lot of culture. I got locked into like some, the music scene, skateboarding. I wasn't really doing photography then, but I was really locked into the music scene, being in a band and skateboarding. Um, and then, me and we were married way too young. We were married at 17. And then I'm a 17-year-old kid going, okay, I'm sowed my oats. And then I knew I was going to be a dad again, with my son, at 19. So, yeah, I don't know. The attraction's always been like, it's just familiar and comfortable. And then as time went on, having kids and grandkids came along and this and that. So I just stayed here. I mostly probably just had a comfortability, and plus I love the mountains. I like to fly fish. I like to camp and do all that stuff. So, that's what I missed in Omaha. They didn't have really that kind of stuff. So,
For sure. I always say that Colorado Springs is, in my opinion, the most beautiful city along the Front Range,
hmm
and it has a lot going for it, right? It has a great art community. I don't know if that's always been the scenario or not, but it definitely has that now. I just kind of like the energy there. But it's for people that might be listening to this somewhere else in the nation or across the world, it's a very eclectic place, right?
right. I mean, you got the military bases. You have focus on the family, New Life churches. You got the big mega churches. It's a red. Going to in the politic realm. It's always been, especially El Paso County and Colorado Springs has been a very red community. It still is. And I get cynical and jaded. We're at, I don't know, I think 400 something thousand people here or whatever, and I'm always like, there could be more. It could be more culture, more this. But being a native here, it's very common anymore. Like there's really not a lot of native people here anymore. A lot of people move here either through the military or through IT or whatever it is. I always got to take a step back with that cynicism and jadedness and be like, this is actually pretty rad. You can see Pikes Peak from my window and Garden of the Gods, and 20-minute drive, you're into into the mountains. Less than an hour drive, you're into some good fly fishing. I mean, so there's that kind of stuff. And then, there are some people doing some really cool stuff culturally and art and stuff here too. So yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. Like sometimes I like to make it out in my head, but yeah, it's a special place in a lot of ways. If you can, you try to remove yourself from like the negative stuff, because it just seems like sometimes we always, as humans, go to the negative parts of things rather than the positive parts. If you look at the positive parts, it's definitely a really cool place to live.
I think it's always easy to take a place for granted, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And I'm like I can get jaded about, Denver, but I think
Right,
as a whole, it's coming into its own. There's good and bad, and there's,
Yeah.
that's just to be expected with growing pains.
for
But
sure.
I do really love Colorado Springs and the friends that I've made there,
Yeah,
and it's just a cool scene. I mean,
yeah,
I love getting out of Denver and driving south and experiencing whatever's going on. You have some great galleries.
yeah,
There's some cool people. And I love kind of this DIY aesthetic that it
yeah,
kind of
Mm.
has. I
yeah.
don't know. I mean, I know that exists here in Denver, but it feels more so there. And I just
Oh,
have
for
a
sure.
huge appreciation for that. Why do you think that is there?
I don't know, man. Growing up too in like the music scene and the punk rock scene and metal scene and all that stuff. Again, it is one of those things where at one point, being a skateboarder, one of my first arrest charges was skateboarding in a swimming pool. One of my first tickets was riding on a curb. So you didn't have a lot of that kind of stuff, so you had to make it your own. A lot of these punk rock friends of mine or people, we're very DIY here at Shutter and Strum, and the community around Nob Hill neighbors, the Nob Hill area where we're at is very DIY. So I don't know. I think sometimes you got to make it. You got to make it yourself before rely on anybody else to make it. So I think there is still certain parts of that small town vibe in a like not a very small town anymore. So yeah, just doing it yourself, like we used to make our own, launch ramps and half pipes. And so it kind of filters back into like the art community and music community too. Like you got to make, if you want something done, you got to make it yourself, and I've had people come in from Denver to the Shutter and Strum, and I'm like, man, this is what like Denver used to be like, the vibe here, your spot, your DIY-ness, the eclecticness of it. And, I've been fortunate enough. I got to travel a lot and got to see, the LAs and the New Yorks and the San Franciscos and the Portlands and the Kansas Cities. And I'd go to those cities and go, God, man, this is rad. Like it's Thursday night and there's this row of crazy cool art galleries going on, and, Thursday nights in Colorado Springs is, you go downtown and you get drunk, or there's I'll probably get some shit for this, but like half-assed restaurants and just drinking places. I mean, my friends that had retail businesses down there can't afford to be down there anymore. So there's that, it's kind of a class war thing too, where the DIY thing needs to happen, because if you can't afford to be part of these certain groups and you got to do it yourself.
Right.
So that's kind of been my philosophy.
So I got a kind of an offshoot question. I know skateboarding is a subculture and all its own, and you've mentioned how important skateboarding is to you.
Right.
So talk about that. Talk about what it is to be a skateboarder, the subculture, because most people would think, and I know Tony Hawk is like, he's got to be
like
damn near 60.
He's the Michael Jordan of skateboarding.
Right. And he's got to be in his late 50s, early 60s, right?
Yeah, he's older than me, so not, so yeah, totally.
So what's the whole thing about skateboarding? And you don't age out of it, it seems like.
Your body, my body did, but yeah, but mentally no. So skateboarding taught me, I grew up, which I'm very grateful for now, is I grew up in a very diverse area in Security, Colorado, which is, I could see parts of Fort Carson from my bedroom window in NORAD, which was scary in the Cold War days and maybe even nowadays. But no, I was always been, like you said, like an outlier. Like I always trying to find, like, my grandma was a horse person. So I grew up around horses, and I rode bulls for a very short time, went to rodeo school. And I thought that was kind of cool in a way, but then I discovered punk rock music and new wave and started skateboarding, and it opened the whole world. It opened my mind up. It opened me up to, again, it opened it up to music and art and photography, cool people. I mean, even, the culture still has a lot of douchebags in it too, but I was able to find, a group of people that I connected with. We could raise hell, we could have fun, we could skateboard, we could be anti-government. You could, fly your freak flag, even though, like, the high school I went to, there was probably maybe 10 skateboarders there, and, the rest was, either metalheads or the solars, we call them now, would be so we were still kind of the minority there, but I was able to go downtown Colorado Springs and just connect into the music world and photography world, and start learning about like being anti-racist and being kind of more anti-government, and the government against a lot of what the government was about and what racism was about and bigotry. And so it really started opening my mind up to which nowadays people would call it woke, which is ridiculous, whatever. But it just started opening up my mind to all this cool world that I was like craving, trying to find myself and find my identity. So that's really what skateboarding did. And like I said, I can't, skateboarding and music and art and photography all go hand in hand. And without skateboarding, I wouldn't have had any. Well, I would probably eventually somehow, but that connected me into all the worlds that I'm passionate about now. I don't, obviously I don't go out every day and skateboard. The falls hurt a lot more. But I still skate and I still do my thing, and I'm still ingrained into the subculture of it.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Could you even imagine, as a young man, as somebody in their teens, being where you are today?
No, I mean, it sounds morbid, but yeah, I really had a death pact with myself. Like 30 was top, but 40 was going to be the time, and yeah, now looking back. So funny and interesting, I guess, was the high school I went to that I, got in trouble to a lot, got suspended for not sitting for the flag and and whatever else I was getting involved with. That was the first high school I went back and started working at. And that's where I started learning how to build relationships with the kids and growing from there and mentoring and doing all that stuff. So, yeah, and I remember some old friends of mine I talked to were like, I can't really, dude. Like, one, you're still alive. Two, man, I couldn't have pictured you in this position, and it's really, really sometimes, again, like I said, when I was working at the other school, when it was still a cool school and the old principal was there, was like, I kept like having the pinch, like, I can't believe I can't believe I'm here where I'm at now, and I can't believe I got this job, kind of thing. So yeah, it's super mind boggling that. Yeah, I mean, I obviously, I'm going to be a pro skater, or I'm going to be in a band, which and that kind of stuff. But back then, that was now, I mean, skateboarding's been it's so corporate now, and music is what it is. So, but yeah, no, I mean, to answer your question, no, I'm just like, yeah, I just wake up sometimes going, God, what the, this is actually pretty cool, and mind blowing still, so.
What does art do for you?
Art for me is a good mental break, a mental release. Drugs and alcohol used to be that release. So I just wanted to forget about myself or my day, or, how do I fit in? I'm one of those people that, like, my part of my brain works to where I have to try harder at everything. I have friends out there that could pick up a bass and and play it, or learn ollie tricks as soon as I could, but I always felt like I had to work harder than everybody else. So when I found that art was more free and more expressing, and I wasn't really and then still not, I'm not worried about, even though I've had a lot of art shows and that kind of stuff, it never was about making money. It was never about people liking it or not, which is, you want people to like your stuff, but it was more, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing art for me. It just makes me feel like I belong. It makes me feel comfortable in my own skin. That's, one of the reasons you drink and do drugs or whatever negative stuff you do. That's what art does for me. It's, it just empowers me and calms my brain and my, my nerves, and, gives me an outlet to, I don't know, just fuck up a canvas or whatever.
You're a certified addiction counselor. What made you want to go back and start working with people that are of the age where you kind of found addiction? What made you decide to do that?
If you do a 12-step program or anything like that, they always say you give it back, So that always resonated with me. So I just remember how hard a time I had as a kid, and how the struggles I had and the violence I saw, and this is, and all the other stuff, and how I felt, that I was like, I want to help kids that I didn't have that. I didn't have positive role models. I mean, I had some cool friends and stuff like that, but we were all doing shitty things and drinking and drugging and blah, blah, blah. But like, I wanted to be that positive role model for somebody young, that I guess I saw myself going, okay, if I had somebody, maybe I would have changed my trajectory in a more positive way. So I was like, really, I just wanted to give back, and I wanted to give back to, like, the youth. We're not getting any younger. The youth of the future, but I just didn't want kids to be in the pain that I remember being in, or watching people be in, and I wanted to give that back. And awesomely, and what was cool was the old principal at the school took me in his office and was like, do you want to become an addiction counselor? We'll pay for everything. So they paid for all of it for me, and because I couldn't afford it, and that stuff either. But so, yeah, it just made sense. It was just another part of my repertoire, like just having a camera, or having, a paintbrush or a skateboard, having this, I obviously know I got sober, but like, what was the reasonings why you do drugs or you drink, or, learning that page 34 stuff rather than just having all your street knowledge. And then, regurgitating it back to somebody at a young age, where a young mind, where, again, like I said, that, you can't tell me shit still to this day. And most kids are like, yeah, whatever, these are just words. But, you're giving them that extra leverage that I didn't have, or other people didn't have, or you don't think you have. And then just showing people that you're not alone. I mean, that's the big thing. You think you're unique and alone in this, and I'm the only one that has this shit going on or whatever. And you're not. It's just that camaraderie, just like with art, skateboarding, and all that stuff has that camaraderie too. So basically, I just wanted to get back and be a positive person. And we always kind of joke back in the party days that you get devil points. And I'm definitely not a religious person and by any means, but like we always called it devil points. And I wanted to get rid of some of these devil points before my time was up, and but in life or whatever. So yeah, just giving it back, and you know trying to help somebody with the pain I know that we're that eventually be going through, or we're going through.
Makes total sense. And you bring that perspective. I mean, you've lived it.
Yeah.
You understand where these kids are coming from. And it probably helps too that even though you're in your 50s, which I can relate to, you're very much much anti-authoritarian.
Yeah.
And how do you negotiate those waters when you
Right.
have to play by some sort of rules, right?
Right. Well, that was the thing, man. The school system's always been designed, the Rothschilds back, they want you to be good factory workers, good soldiers. And, that's why there's bells, and that's why they've designed the system the way it is. It's been my opinion, and probably a lot of people's opinion, it's not to educate kids. They don't want an educated person. And so how can you educate people, maybe who can't read or read at a low level? And how can you get them up to the, like, okay, well, what if you had a contract? What if somebody put a contract in front of you, say you had somebody representing you as a photographer, and you had a contract put in front of you, and you can't read the damn thing, or you don't understand the damn thing. So what are you going to do? You're just going to be taken advantage of or whatever. That's just kind of one example, So, yeah. So, I always, like I said, again, and people like it or not. And some of these, places I worked didn't like the mental health aspect of it. They just have to do math, and they have to do this, and they have to graduate, So, yeah, I just, I think education should be a lot more than what it is.
Sure.
There should be a lot more avenues to explore, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're not just gonna, okay, a doctor, lawyer. I mean, there's pride in being a craftsman, a bricklayer, a blue collar worker, but how can you do that and not, and then also too, like how do you have these other skills to where you're not? I mean, my whole family were blue collar workers. I was in construction for years, and why do you want, here's some skills and some level stuff that you don't have to break your back and, age yourself very quickly and be a grouchy person all the time. So like having those different avenues. It's like, how do you build a portfolio? How do you, I don't know, maybe you don't like the music side of everything, like making the music, but like there's still people that drive the tour bus. There's people that do the merch. There's people that produce the record. There's people that put up the lights, So I always provide like skill set avenues to where you have that option rather than just having, okay, you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, you're going to be in student debt from all your college stuff, and that's not going to guarantee you a job anywhere. But if you have X, Y, and Z, you have connection with the community, you have, good references, people, some, it's who, and then you get hired, you get to a place, and then you can show them what you know. So the big thing is too, is like, it's not just about the education part. It's also about being a good, healthy community member and being able to navigate the, life. I always do joke with my students. I still do that. Like, you thought, high school was kind of shitty. Like, wait till you get in like life. I had that conversation with my youngest son. It was so, and it was cool. He's like, I want a job, I want my own money. And now that he's working, he goes, man, I go, I told you, man, so it's not always what it's cracked up to be, but like this is what life is designed for. And we have to live life on life's terms, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just got to figure out how you fit into.
Yeah. How do you fit in, and where are the lanes that you take to try to be I kind of going back, we had a principal at the school for a short time before I left that was very not a nice person. And they passed away, and I'm not speaking ill of a dead person or anything like that, but we were all in her family included, were just like, so I've kind of like, I want to teach these kids to live a life to where you've made an impact somewhere where you don't pass away and people just go,
Right.
and it's not like you're going to be, Pulitzer Prize winning or, this and that, but it's just like people know that you made an impact somewhere, and it's a bummy thing that your impact left, and that hopefully, though, you've gave that back to the next person to keep continuing on with that cycle.
For sure. I mean, that means a lot. And I think it gets overlooked.
Yeah,
Giving back in some way, volunteering your time, those are all things that can be really, really rewarding.
for
Speaking
sure.
speaking from experience,
Yeah,
and it gives you insight, and it's a feeling that nothing else can give you.
exactly.
You can't buy it in a store.
Can't shoot it in
Um,
your arm or drink it. I
yeah,
mean, yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure,
it's not
man.
like, okay, I got the pat on the back, and it's not an ego thing by any means. There's this difference between being prideful and having pride. So, it's just that. And then, like, going back to what I talked about, like, there's a lot of losses when you work in the education world. That's the kind of stuff that when you're asking me, like, the impact, that's the kind of stuff you're going, okay, cool. Made my day. I was having a shitty day, having a bad mental health day, and that stuff picked me up, gave me some more motivation to give that back again, and keep clawing my way through life or whatever.
Yeah. David Brooks talks about he's a writer for The Atlantic and it's on PBS sometimes, and he talks about resume virtues, and then he
Mm-hmm.
talks about eulogy virtues. And
Right,
you want to impact people with eulogy virtues, right? You
right.
want them to do like what you said, is where when you pass away, they have this memory of who you are
Mm-hmm.
as a person and how good you are, as opposed to how great a boss you were and how committed to time you were, and that
And
kind of
nobody gives a
stuff.
shit about that,
Yeah.
especially your employers or these people. I'd watch this short. No, I didn't mean to cut you off because I'm actually
No.
fascinated by that. It's cool. But I'd watched a short film last night called Mandatory Bathroom Break. And it's about this kid that graduated college in the business, and all he ever did was did business. He was answering phones, and he was, trying to claw his way to middle management or whatever it was. And he got an interview finally for that middle management position. And the guy wanted to know about him. He goes, "Well, I've done this. I was the president of the business club. I was this." And the guy was like, "Well, you're from Chicago, and I'm from Chicago. Tell me about your Chicago hot dog experience." And the guy was like, "Yeah, you don't put ketchup on it." And the kid was like, "Well, I've never had a Chicago dog." And the guy was, "Well, okay, well, that concludes the interview. And then he ends up getting a phone call from this random person, and he realizes at the end that you got to live life, and he has a Chicago hot dog. So that's the impact. So
Right. Yeah, you start to question whether they're really from Chicago if they haven't had a Chicago dog, right?
right, well, that was it. The guy was more worried about, or not worried, but he was like, I want to know you as a person, not
Right,
like
right,
all these, which is crazy. Obviously it was a movie, but it was like, that's what, why he didn't get to where he wanted, is because he hadn't lived life. So
right. No, that's great. I love that.
yeah, I'll have to check out who you just talked about. That's a
Man.
very cool thing.
Yeah, I think it's in his book on Road to Character.
Road to
Um,
Character. Okay.
yeah, David Brooks. Great writer, interesting cat. Love to listen to him talk too. There's a lot of YouTube out there. So if you watch any YouTube, there's a ton
Oh
of
yeah.
stuff. He's a
Cool.
conservative political thinker, but he's very, very liberal at the same
Yeah.
time. So anyway,
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll check
but
that out for sure.
yeah, when you were talking about that, he just popped in my head. So,
Nice.
yeah,
You said you found photography essentially like in your early 30s?
Yeah. Where I started taking it seriously, where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get a camera. Well, and that we had the luxury at that time too that cell phones had a little camera, and I couldn't afford a camera, and of course we all had cell phones. So I started just taking photographs, and I did that at the school. I did a lot of walking at the first school I worked at. So I would just photograph things that I just caught my eye and that were interesting. And I remember, just and then I started doing. So my art is when I do paint, it's I use my photographs as the main subject, and I paint around it abstractly or whatever. So I just started, all those dots were connecting. I'm like, wow, I love this, and like take pictures of dumb, mundane things, weird things, that kind of stuff. And it just like where I would obsess over it, like, man, I just want to go home, and I made a little studio in my garage, and my wife had ended up getting me a little camera, and I was like, that's all I wanted to do. It was like, I mean, I was still doing my job and doing what I was supposed to, and it was, that kind of stuff. But I would just obsess about, I want to go photograph. And luckily I was able to photograph during the day or whatever. But I didn't bring my camera. I used my cell phone. But yeah, just that light again just clicked on. That switch was like, this is it, man. This is that round peg, for that round hole, and that I love the way it makes me feel. I love the passion of it. I love the result, even if it's not a good photograph. It's just the act of doing it. You talked about the act of smoking, and that was like, for me too, it was more of like, you got the nicotine high and you got the addiction part of it, but it was all all part of it, and that's the process of like, the process is where it's all at in art and photography and all that. And the cherry on top is just the final piece, So yeah, just that light bulb clicked in and was like, man, this is where I feel like I'm doing something cool. I didn't have to try the extra brain side of me where I have to try extra hard, but I still, still had hard. I got composition, I got lighting, I got, all that, because in high school, I hated photography classes, art classes, because they tell you suck, and they tell you, how and what to do. It's an authoritative thing. High school photography was all the jocks and cheerleaders doing yearbook and, making out and screwing in the darkroom or whatever. And that's, I was like, doesn't make sense, So when I was able to go like, this is a freedom, and I can do whatever I want because I'm doing it for myself, really. And then if somebody's turned on by it, just like recording a song or whatever, that's cool too, But yeah, just that the act itself, the physical part of it is what it's all about.
Yeah. And you're still very much into film photography, analog photography.
Yeah, lately all I've been doing is shooting film. If I have client work, which I don't do much of anymore. I did a wedding. I get to do cool weddings for cool people. This one last wedding I did, their wedding announcements were they were all in black metal makeup. We went to the woods, they were setting the swords on fire, and that kind of stuff. That's that's what I like. So, anyways, I did that, and I was able to also shoot film. So, but if I'm doing like certain things, and I don't think one better than the other. I definitely love film better, but yeah, I primarily just shoot all analog still, and way behind on processing because I want to create. I don't want to do all the other stuff, So I think I wouldn't say it's a disadvantage of film photography, but there's more work involved into it. Yes, but yeah, to answer your question, like. Yeah, all I've been shooting lately, and then I'll do reference shots with my cell phone, or if I shoot a show next door at a club, or if somebody hires me, I'll use digital. But I always shoot film too, even if they're not into it. It's just like I just tell them this is for me, and if you dig it too, we print you some photos or whatever.
So what format are you doing? 35 or 4x5?
30, or what? 35, 120, and 4x5. So. I shot some 4x5 large format at the wedding. Mostly I'm just doing 35 millimeter, but then I get a wild hair, I'll break out my 120s. But usually I've just been shooting a lot of 35 millimeter lately. I mostly shoot black and white, but I've been doing more color too because I do also develop color film, and I'm going to get brave enough one of these days and actually print color film. Right now I just scan it.
Yeah, I mean color processing is not an easy thing to do, and especially when you don't have like a Crayonite machine,
right,
or something that does kind of a lot of that for you. So that's cool, man.
And then that's the thing, if you shoot some color photography and for a client or this and that, and they're expecting to see what they see on Instagram and shit like that, and if you don't, and I don't do post-production shit. I really meat and potatoes, keep it all analog where I'll do some dodging and burning and this is and that, but I don't go into Photoshop or Lightroom afterwards and redo this. If the photo is the photo, I do everything, do everything in camera. And then if I scan it or print it, it's going to be, that's the photo. I think you can take a photograph and make it digital art to a point to where if you're just over editing, and I just don't think that's the purest form of photography. At that point, I think you should just call it digital art if you're over, post producing your work.
Right. Yeah. Even when I shoot digital now, I haven't shot film in a long time. And because I'm mostly lazy, I don't like Lightroom. I don't like the way it handles files. So I don't use that. Right. So I use RAW. and I kind of put it into RAW and open up Photoshop. And because I don't do a lot of Photoshop work, I call it good.
Yeah.
But I shoot mostly I shoot obviously color, but I convert a lot of my stuff to black and white, so I don't have to worry about color.
Well, and there's nothing wrong if you're cropping, you're doing that kind of stuff. I think that's. I mean, Ansel Adams created all the zone systems and all that kind of stuff because he always called his mind's eye. So you take a photograph, you know what you see in your head. The camera sometimes is not going to pick that up. So there is manipulation you can do and want to do, So, but if you're going into Lightroom and you're spending hours on your photos, by that time it's digital art and it's more artificial then, So
yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people do amazing stuff.
Yeah, and I'm just lazy too. I mean, to me, computers are a necessary evil, and that kind of stuff. So
I totally can relate to that. And for me, the part I enjoy is the creation of the photograph and being behind the camera.
Yeah.
Pressing the shutter button.
Yep.
But once that's done, I'm kind of done a lot.
Yeah, totally. And I like to sit on my photographs too. It's like I don't like to, with digital photography, you can look at it I shoot digitally like I do with film. I'm usually a one shot, one photograph dude, unless I'm doing client work and I'm gonna, bracket or shoot multiple photos or whatever. But I still shoot, and I have a Fuji system. My Fuji camera, or digital camera, shoots like a looks and even shoots and feels like a film camera. So I'll just I'll shoot it that way, and I won't look at my photographs right away. I don't ever look back into my unless I'm getting looking for lighting issues or whatever. I don't look back at my photographs for a couple more days. Like when I do client work, I'll tell them it's going to take about a week or so if you're cool with that, because I like to let it age a little bit, and that's some of the reasons too. Besides some of the laziness too, is I'll sit on my my film photographs too, because I don't know. There's something about letting it sit and letting it gel for a little while and then going back and look at it. You have a different mind, I guess, on maybe what you shot, or if you did make the shot or you didn't make the shot or whatever. That's just how my workflow and how I do it.
I love that philosophy because I'm the same exact way, because I don't want to look at it after I just shot it.
No.
I just want to sit with it for a little bit and then come back with some fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, I'm like, especially with digital, I'm like, I hate everything.
Oh, for sure.
and then I let it sit for just a little bit. I come back and I'm like, all right, there's some good stuff here. I like some of this stuff,
Right. And your mood's going to change. It's like listening to the same kind of music over and over again. It's like saying you're in the same mood all the time. So that mood, you may be excited and this looks great and I'm having a great day mentally or whatever. Oh, this is great. And then you can go back to it the next couple of days and be like, maybe it wasn't so great or whatever, but it is. It's just being behind the camera, pressing that button and, being in the moment. And there's some that the process is, just, I don't have a lot of big words for it. It's just a really cool experience.
You said you shoot Fujifilm on your digital. Are you shooting monochromatic in that, or do you shoot color and then?
No, so that's another thing I'll do too, is I'll shoot always in color or in just color, or I'll shoot just in monochrome for monochrome. On my phone, I'll do, if I'm messing around or getting a reference shot, I'll change color to black and white. But no, I'm pretty like I said, I'm pretty by the book. I kind of just shoot digitally like how I do with film.
Yeah, the Q2 and Q3 monochromatic is appealing to me. Just to go back to the simple where it's dials and they are fixed one lens, 40 millimeter and 28 or 24 or something like that, and then monochromatic. It's just monochromatic, and there's something appealing for me. I think it's because I got the Z8 and it's so complicated. My brain hurts half the time.
Yeah, exactly.
and I'm lazy.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Anyway.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing is I'm pretty traditional. I shoot a 35 or 28 because I want to be in the action. I want to be, next to the person or in the act, whatever I'm photographing. I will add a red filter to my monochrome stuff on my Fuji. I like that, how it looks. I don't like it with film. It's weird.
Right.
But I do like the red filter. You can add the, the monochrome, the R's, the red, yellow, or whatever the other one is. But like I said, it's a lot. Cameras are a lot, man. I mean, there's a lot to a digital camera, like going all there. You can make the recipes now where you can make Tri-X or
Right.
HP5 or whatever. You can dial your dials into that to like recreate that. I just think I'm just a creature of habit again. I know what I like and I want my photographs. And that's how I teach it too. I'm like, you'll get into your own self as an artist, like what do you want yours to look like? And the main thing is knowing the exposure triangle and then knowing your overs and unders to where like you find that sweet spot. And it's really, if you're shooting auto or if you're shooting manual on a digital camera, it's you're going to notice there's not a huge difference between on the focus meter where you want it. Just these small, the camera just telling you this,
Right.
but it may just be this,
Right.
So you find that in yourself as an artist, like what your photographs, what you want your photographs to look like, and that's what it's about. It's about your eye. You hear the whole, oh, your camera takes good photographs. It's like, more than the camera. The camera's a box. I mean, I guess if you're shooting digital, you can boost and do it and all this stuff. But like the camera's just a box that holds the lens, and your lens in your eye is like what it's about,
Right.
And you can overcomplicate it or you can undercomplicate it. I mean, I've worked with kids that like definitely get like the whole that concept because that's the way I think too. But then I had a kid before they started doing recipes. He figured out how to do his own recipes, and he had 1 credit in high school. Probably never got any more head credits. Now he's aged out, but like randomly again showing that whole like the reward system. Like that last time I ran into him, it's been a while ago now, but he figured out all these formulas to make his. He started shooting a film lens on his digital camera. We talked about that too, and then he figured out all the formulas. And then I had another student that like he was a high function autistic kid that like I would show trying to explain the technical side to some of these kids, and it's like just like what I would be like when you fart in front of a dog, it's that look they give you. That's how it was. But this one kid was like, "No, I get it." And I go, "Really?" I go, "You're just saying that because you don't want to, you're trying to." Because the kid will say, "Oh, I already know how to do that," but like, no, this kid got it like within half the video. Because I was I would show a couple little bit, but it usually was we'd study different photographers and what they were shooting. But yeah, so you do have like the kid that can, problem solve it and figure it out in like 10 minutes or whatever. And then you have the kid that this is it. This is all you need to know is like, if you want to have some control, you shoot manual. If you're shooting a digital camera, if you, look at your autos. Like if you like the auto look, then that's the look or whatever,
Right.
So yeah, you can, we can complicate it or make it as simple as you want to, so that was a joy of teaching too, is figuring them. Those kids are like, oh my God, you get it, man. I mean, it took me a long time to get it, so another reward, I guess, too. And then also too, just when a kid clicks in, I think I had one kid, and he's the kid I ran into at the show not that long ago. And I would like, man, you guys are great. Like you already have this natural talent. This one kid, because I got to know him and his family very well. I took him aside one day. I said, dude, like you are photographing like you're living your life. Like it's lazy. It's not good, So we had this teachable moment, and it sounded like it wasn't like the art teacher saying you suck. It was more like you're bringing your negative life into your photography, and it should be the opposite. You should be bringing the positive side of your life into the photography, so you get these. If that makes sense, and it made sense to him. And then he started doing these beautiful portraits of kids. He did a portrait assignment for me where he nailed it every single time. So I don't know, man. It's just, I guess, the learning side of all that.
Todd, do you have a favorite focal length? Since we were talking, like mine's like 24, I think, because I do a lot of landscape. Do you have a favorite?
I would say mine is probably in the normal to longer range of things. Okay. Yeah.
50 to 85 or something.
But I just got that 40 millimeter for the Z8.
Oh, that's right.
Nice.
And I've been using that a lot. I like it as just a walk around lens. I carry it with me all the time. And yeah.
Yeah, it goes to your toolbox. Like, what do you where do you need it for? And like, I do a lot of more documentary street stuff, like especially lately. So I think, for me, the 35 and the 28 are like, perfect for that,
Right.
So
I do like a 35 that has a cool look to it, especially for portraits.
Yeah, portraits.
The 35 is actually really cool.
For sure. The nifty 50 you can never go wrong with, and we'll get donations every now and again, which we rely heavily on with different cameras. So I'll test everything out first. And I shot part of that wedding with an older Sony before they became mirrorless. And I did use a 85 or something lens. It was so weird to me. It was just weird. I didn't like the result, and it was just weird. But like that's what I would start it on when I actually I had enough money to buy like a Canon Rebel years and years ago. That's the kit lenses, So, but it's so weird to see some of that stuff now, where it looks and stuff, depending on what you're shooting for sure. But like, yeah, it was so weird to shoot with a lens like that.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I mean, you touched on a little bit, but I love when I get fed into the algorithm your stuff, Brian.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
I'm gonna pull up a photograph and talk about it because I think this is really pretty fantastic photograph. I love it. This is, I don't know, I assume you took this maybe out in California.
It was in Phoenix.
In Phoenix.
Me and my wife were in Phoenix, yeah. And that was just like, man, I looked up, I was getting In-N-Out burger for us, and that was by the In-N-Out. I looked up and it was just, and that actually, that wasn't a one shot. I took two shots to get the plane in the middle, but it was just that happy, right place, right time. Yeah, I like that photograph. I really did. I really do like that photograph.
The composition is impeccable,
Yeah.
and I love it. So it's two of these palm trees with an airplane flying between them, and you caught it just right. So
at first, in my mind, that's why I waited to go back and look at it. When I shot the photograph, I was like, it's just your typical, catching something, subframing of this. But like, I was looking at definitely the plane, but I loved how the palm trees, the one's really crooked and more, it's taller than the other, and definitely the sky in the background was, the plane was incidental in a lot of it, but like that makes it, it's like the cherry on top for me.
Right. So you got on there in the subject line or whatever, the comment line, you got poems about dreams. Is that the title of this one, or is that just something random you came up with?
No, so I like to title my stuff. It could be something I was thinking about at the time, or when I go back and look at the photograph, I would remember what was in my head. Sometimes it's a lyric of a song, something like it's a poem. But yeah, I try to I like to title my photograph because I think sometimes titles will make the viewer like spend some more time with your photographs too. Like, what is he talking about here, or whatever.
So what did you mean by poems about dreams? Just curiosity.
So it was a weird combination. There's a Built to Spill song called or there's a lyric where he says, I want to make movies of my dreams or something like that. And I just thought that, and then the sky being this weird. So where I was in my headspace, my wife was at an appointment. I won't get too deep into it. Like, we went out to Phoenix for a procedure she was having. And at that moment, it felt like I was just kind of in this dream state because there was a lot of like heady stuff going on in my head. And then that Built to Spill song, that lyric came on about making movies of my dreams. And then I thought about it being a poetic, I don't know if that makes sense, like this poetic, I don't know, there was something poetic about that, how I caught that plane in between there with what was going on in my head tied to that Built to Spill song, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I just always curious about, people titling, and I kind of figured that's probably what you did here. And I think that's a great idea. I don't do that. And I should, I think you're right. I think it gives, maybe somebody will pause a little longer, like you said, and contemplate what, the relationship between the piece of artwork or the title. Yeah.
Well, I think it's just super fun for me too, even if it doesn't even make sense with the photo. It was something that was in my head or a thought, and then I like the fact that you can put music to stuff now. So it's that whole art and music and combining all that stuff together. And I doubt a lot of people. I think when I feel like I want to curate my page to where I'm at photographing at one time. It's not intentional for algorithm or this and that. So I was doing a lot of negative posting, and I had a friend call me out like, hey man, hope you're good. I know this, kind of knew me as a person, was like, man, you're putting all this like crazy world shit on your stories, which I still do. Cause I think it's important that people remember or whatever. But, I started making the point because I'm not on Facebook anymore. Facebook is I kind of curated with all just photographs. So, Instagram started off with like place where you posted your photographs. So wherever I'm at in my photographic journey is I've started curating, these shots and with the music. So it's a whole curated thing, not for algorithm, just for, because I think it's fun. It's a good way to, get out of your head a little bit if I'm relaxing at night or whatever. It's just a cool process for me to calm down too. So
Yeah, no, that's great.
I love that you get out and you walk the streets.
yeah.
Do you usually do that, a few times a week? Because you seem like you're out and about walking a lot.
I try to do it daily. It just depends. So when I'm teaching and working with the kids with photography too, that's where we do our work. We hit the streets. Because street photography, there's so many cool things you can photograph, so many weird things. The lighting's always different, so you get to learn different lighting techniques. And we're in Nob Hill. A big chunk of the stuff was in Nob Hill, where it's a more impoverished area, and you're going to get to different and weird stuff. And I see, symbolism and different things like that. So no, I try to photograph and get out at least daily, and it's good exercise for me too, and getting some sun, and but yeah, street photography and documentary photography is really my main passion.
You're so good at it, man.
Well, I appreciate it. It means a lot, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, you do have a great eye for street photography. Man, I put your stuff up there with anybody.
And that's the mindfulness part, because that's what I teach the kids too. I'm like, you're having a bad day, go do a photo. Why? There's nothing fun to. There's not. Go walk your neighborhood. Go down the street. Go out for 15 minutes. Well, there's nothing to photograph. I go. I guarantee you can sit in your living room and probably find 5 photographs. We do something like that. And then you're like, oh no, I think you're right. So it's getting you in tune with the world, getting you being mindfulness, being in the moment, and just knowing your surroundings, and just observing and finding cool stuff that may not, to some people that's mundane, or I don't get it or whatever. Again, it's not about them. It's about, you and your mind and your really your mental health, the mindfulness part of it.
Right. I laugh because your students think just like I do. Like I think about Rapid City. I'm like, oh, there's nothing to photograph here,
right.
Because I'm looking at all these famous, street photographers that are doing like Paris and Venice and Japan.
Right.
And everything is so exotic, right? And you're thinking, God, I see this shit every day.
Yeah.
But if you spend some time with it, right? And in all my photography, I'm like usually going somewhere else and doing it. This is a great practice. I think anybody with a camera or with your smartphone, just go around and snap some stuff, man.
Just check out the world around you. And then you start, I've photographed some of these areas thousands of times, probably way over dramatic, but I always find something new, or something like, oh shit, I didn't see that. And or kids, when I go out with kids, they'll catch something. I'm like, and it's definitely not jealous. I'm like, damn, I wish I would have saw that first. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's always something. You're gonna find something,
Yeah.
Unless you're just your typical landscape photographer or this or that, But this stuff will teach you how to compose, how to frame, how to use lighting, and then you can take that to any form of photography.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have this photo pulled up that it's so funny. And this is the other thing that I love about, I think we share a lot of likes and dislikes.
Yeah.
Especially what's going on in the world.
Right.
I appreciate your quirky sense of humor, because I have that kind of sense of humor. So this one, talk a little bit about this. This is called Double Entendre.
Well, so there's in this neighborhood too, there's way too many, just like too many liquor stores, too many whatever. There's too many weed dispensaries. And it's not because I'm recovery or this and that. It's because I think it's ridiculous. So that was part of it. So it's a weed dispensary store where I don't know if they had their windows broken out or somebody drove through the window, but it's all boarded up. But they have this giant American flag there, and it's got the medical symbol above it, and then it's got so it's in front of a handicap parking spot. So just caught me, and I wanted to photograph this for a long time, and finally I just went and did it because it was something that was on my mind. But it was just seemed to the state of where we are right now, and it was definitely wasn't a jab at any neurodivergent folks or anything like that. But we're just in a very, we talked about in the beginning, what is real, what is fake, or this is not satire anymore. And just that to me, just the medical symbol of okay, you have a medical symbol, which I don't, I'm not going to go into deeply. I don't believe a lot of people are smoking weed for medical people. There are, but then you have the giant American flag, which to me is a hate symbol. And then you have the handicapped parking spot where it to me, it's that double entendre. It just doesn't, it's like, I don't know. It reminded me too of or the whole jumbo shrimp thing, it just caught me that it just seems like it was just a good symbolistic photograph of kind of the times we're in and kind of where some people's headspaces are and stuff.
Yeah. I love how you caught that shadow just perfectly on the line.
I was just about to mention the shadow. I'm a big shadow freak. And so a lot of times I haven't photographed it because of that, the lighting, so I liked it was on the very top of the stencil there and how it kind of separates the frame quarterly and not really halfway or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Basically thirds.
Yeah. And then it also, I don't know, there's some of the symbolism that again, waiting to look at my photos later and then I start thinking about it was the flag is definitely in the shadow. So it's dark and symbolizing kind of the dark times we're in, whatever. So.
Right.
I just want to have a conversation with whatever dipshit hung this huge American flag on the side of this dispensary. What is the thought behind this, dude?
Well, that was my point too. It just didn't make sense to me, man. I don't know, man. I worked with this guy years ago when I was a painter. Maybe this is kind of how I thought about it. But he was an older guy, and on his truck, he called his painting company Harvest Painting, and he had a Jesus fish on there. And me being me, I was like, are you a Christian, dude? He goes, no, man, this stuff just sells. It will make people, notice me. And these, these Christians and these people will hire me because they see that, So that's kind of maybe what I got there. And I think nowadays, though, man, the American flag it's close to the swastika flag to me, and that it's symbolizing this dipshit I'm proud of what's going on here. I'm proud. Maybe he's not, but I'm proud that there's ICE kidnapping people. I'm proud that, I can be a bigot or whatever. And that, to me, that's why the whole symbolism of the photograph too.
That's why I was going like this. As I was, it's I feel like these patriots, right? And this is what I hate because, I feel like it's the American flag as a symbol has been usurped by these dipshit.
Yeah, for sure.
Elitists, Christian nationalists, fascists. And, it's all about the flag, and I don't know. It just, it irritates me to no end.
Well, I started finding out, too, that a lot of these people that own these places, they're anti this, anti that, and, and whatever, but they start noting where the money's at and they start buying dispensaries and this is and that, and I'm like, so it is. It's that whole dipshit mentality. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm pretty positive that that's what it is. He's a dipshit, man. So.
Well, he's probably using it, like you said. Maybe there's a certain segment of his population that the American flag, I'm going to buy it from there. Although it'd be hard. Like a dispensary is not what I would think that kind of advertisement would go for.
Well, that's my point, though. I think that. I know some people in that world and in that business that you do get more, it's more acceptable now than, I grew up, my dad was a good old boy and, why do you call it dope? Because only dope smoke it, or whatever. But it's becoming, I don't know, man. It's just this, they're colonizing something, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Seeing something like this just pisses me off. It's dickheads driving with, the American flag hanging off their pickup truck with a Trump flag on the other fucking side.
Oh, we got a bunch of that here.
Yeah, I mean, it seems very, I don't know. It just irritates me. And it's not, it's actually really disrespectful if you know anything about.
For sure. And I've always been, the anti-establishment, and like I said, I'm not standing for the American flag, the national anthem and stuff. But there are aspects of it too that I would remember you don't let it touch the ground or you have to have it burnt or you have to send it to a place, and these guys, I don't know. It's just it's just this whole, first it's all about the Constitution. Now they don't give a shit about the Constitution, but they have the Constitution, we the people shit on their truck. It just shows the mentality of these people and I mean, again, these are probably the people that never read a history book, and they just know what they know through the generic history they were taught in school, if they went to class, or whatever. But like, yeah, it just is such a weird flex.
Yeah.
I like that. It's a weird flex.
Yeah, totally.
I'm going to pull up one more photograph here that I want to talk about. I mean, there's so many good ones, man. Like literally,
that means a lot. I appreciate that, Todd.
I seen that cross here. I'm just going to say this real quick since we just interviewed him a couple days ago. I seen the cross on top of the flag, above the flag. I'm like, oh, it's a Joey Curlin. Because you know how he does those
yeah.
Those
I know
crosses?
Joey. Yeah, definitely know Joey. Yeah.
Yeah, you've shown Joey.
Yeah, we've had his work before. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I saw that cross and immediately I made that connection to Joey. So I love Joey. So
yeah, rad person. I haven't seen him since when I was at the school.
Yeah.
This is a great photograph here.
Oh, that one's cool too.
Again, just being present.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So this is a kind of a jab. Like, so there's another picture that I shot right after this. So if you go to the right of the picture, there is a light post. And so this is a gentrified area of Colorado Springs now. It was right by the Red Cross shelters down the street, but they put the Switchback Stadium there. Basically gentrified that whole area and surrounded it by what they surrounded with. So there's these high-rise apartments, all gentrified, and then there's a fence or light post there. Somebody put like how many people at that. It's more now, but there was how many people that were kidnapped by ICE in Colorado, and Colorado Springs was next to that. But then I started noticing like the street sign looked like a cross, and then the whole Christian nationalist thing. And then if you notice in the small my left-hand corner, there's that little art piece there. So this is a friend of mine I got to know years ago. They live in LA now, and they're in this band called Strawberry Money. It's super cool people. But that was some of their art. They went around and posted their art in these areas too, to kind of, I don't know, I don't think a jab, but so that's a tile they did. I used to have a similar tile I gave to a student. So there was that dichotomy, the cross and the ice thing, and then being in this gentrified area. And the cross is, definitely kind of wonky. Well, I mean, it's a street sign, but it reminded me of a cross, but it was just wonky, just kind of getting with the flag and the symbolism and all that kind of stuff. And then, a big shadow person, and then how it falls onto just the top of that concrete little foot wall. And then you have all your patterns of the sidewalk and different stuff like that. So there was just a lot going on when I hit that spot and saw the ICE poster with that street sign and that piece of art there, and then just it being in that gentrified area. So
the rabbit is a drawing that your friend did?
Yeah. So they would post art and just put art around the city. And I had found I found a piece downtown. I was still at the school. It's been years ago. And then I had it in my classroom. And then one of my friend of mine and one of the old history teachers at the school came in and goes, "Oh, that's Joni's artwork." I go, "Who is this person?" Because I see their artwork everywhere, And they're like, "Oh, they're these two cool artists that live in this hoarding house." And it was like the hoarding house you would see on that Hoarder TV show. It was that bad, kind of funky. Anyway, this is just a whole weird backstory to it. But then they create, we're doing this art, and they were kind of like, doing this cool street art and putting street art where, you could find and have a piece, or they were just kind of disrupting little areas with art, kind of going back, I guess, a little bit Bainsky, but not Bainsky, whatever. So yeah, I got to know them, and then I'm like, dude, like introduce me to these folks, and he goes, well, they're moving to LA, so. They ended up playing a show at the gallery because we do live shows too, and even here they played a show, and there's kind of this noise act 2-piece thing, and then they moved to LA, and I call them Santa Claus because once a year they come back and I'll try to book them, here or whatever. So I don't know, just a little backstory to that piece of art and like the whole scene itself and like what was going on in my head and around that neighborhood at the time.
You got the verbiage in your little comment section there that says promote self-interest, false hope. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. So, and then also too, and I forgot this part of it because on the wall next to it, there's some weird, I think it's some Christian scrawling.
Yeah. It says, let God be magnified.
Yeah. So that was another part of it going, okay, that the weird wonkiness of the street sign looking like a cross and just like that whole, the handicap spot with the flag, kind of the same kind of, the same kind of deal. Because I honestly think that is just as gross as the the colonizing of the flag is writing Christian graffiti and shit everywhere. And I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. You both said it at the same time. So it says, just in case it doesn't come out, it says, let God be magnified.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Street sign looking like this wonky cross, and
right. Yeah.
It was magnified, I guess. I don't know how I see it magnified, whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah, and the light pole one that you mentioned before, it says on the light pole, there's a poster that says 5,000 Colorado residents disappeared by ice.
Yeah.
So, and you said that was pretty close to where the other one was taken, huh?
Just so if I turn to my left, I like architectural photography and stuff like that too, but I just wanted to get like the new high-rise apartments there because I remember I was a freelance photographer we had this little magazine in town called The Independent, and before all that just growing up here, that was like a Chrissy Fallow Lumber, it was a whole different city part at the time. So I walked over there just to specifically photograph that, and I like the shapes and all that stuff, and then happened to see it. So after I snapped the picture we just saw, I looked over to that and saw that. So, and it just kind of fit with the whole, and I'm sure there's a reason why that flyer was put there in that neighborhood too. So yeah, right. Just kind of, it was definitely like not what my intention was, but it just happened to work again because I saw it next to the high-rise apartments, and these people, I'm sure, and without more being presumptuous, like most people, they're not caring or worrying about. They have what do you call it? Privilege and stuff. So they probably didn't care about any of that. So that showing the flyer next to this, gentrified area kind of was more of just a symbolistic idea. Plus I like light posts, and the, black and white really captures all that stuff well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole texture and everything.
The texturing and the depth, and everything. So
yeah, great eye, man.
Yeah.
Like really. Here's one that's very abstract that I love.
Oh yeah, the shadow. Yeah.
I'm trying to think where that was. Oh no, that was an art installation we had in the gallery here, and I just loved and there was some. What does the title say to that?
It says it must appear that I'm a spy.
Yeah, so it was just like walking around, I noticed that. So I'll try to do little advertising stuff on our Instagram to like shows, but make it obscure, like this is the artist stuff. It's still the artist stuff, but it was the shadow from a piece of his sculpture that I thought was cool, and going back to the shadows and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that's a cool one.
Yeah, a number of these I just love, man. I mean, when I look at a photograph and I go, damn it, I wish I would have made that. That's a damn good photograph. It's a good photograph, right?
Yeah. That means a lot, man.
Yeah, that's the way I always measure it. It's like, I wish I would have made that photograph. There was one that has there's one more that I wanted to talk about, and it was a motel in the background, but
okay.
I've lost it.
Here it is. You find it? Yep.
There we go.
Yep.
This one with the cool cloud, and you can't really read the sign much in front of it, but it's an old sign. I love this photograph. So
that's literally like right out our door from Shutter Strum here. It's that building I know was a weed grow at one time, going back to all that. But I think just looking up and being aware of what's around you. And I just love sky stuff. I love to have the clouds do these natural weird art stuff, and and just the whole, the decay of the signs, and the motel is really not a nice place to, but some people, they can't afford to live anywhere else. And this area is going to be gentrified at some point too, and it's already in the works. So I like to document it more, like kind of in an artful way too. And that cloud was kind of this looming cloud, like over that area too, and like a fog or the mist, or kind of reminded me too of that Stephen King movie, because I think I had watched it not that before that, called The Mist, where so it kind of reminded me of that, kind of like looming, doomy, like eventually that's going to be gentrified, and that was kind of a looming sign of it. Plus, it's just a cool looking cloud.
Yeah. And the text says the memory stays only.
Right. So that meaning, like, after a while, just seeing this, like the high rise apartments used to be a Chrissy Fallow Lumber or whatever it was at the time. That's going to be we've joked that's going to be the next natural grocer area or some bullshit, So again, that's just documenting a time and a place, because that's what photography is too. That one of these days that's going to be gone.
Yeah, and I'm even amazed in Rapid City. I'll drive around and I'll be like, "Shit, what the hell was there?" Because it's all gone now, right? Tore down. I'll be like, I don't even remember what it was,
right?
So
yeah, I try to document that kind of stuff. My grandma did the same thing. Going back to what my grandma was, documentary things were important. A lot, definitely was about family and that kind of stuff. But this is the same thing about documenting, and then I'm fortunate enough to have an archive at the Pikes Peak Library District. So during COVID, I was out photographing, and then the protests started happening, and so they offered me an archive. So I'm like one of the few living artists or something that has an archive so it's got my BLM stuff, COVID stuff, and Club Q stuff. So again, I guess my point of being that, and kind of maybe a shameless plug, but is documenting. You got to document, because especially we talked about it again, how crazy this world is and how things aren't real. The Holocaust was documented for a reason, even though it was gnarly or whatever. You got to document, because people will say it never happened, or people forget.
Yeah,
we have short memories, man.
Yeah, for especially even more nowadays.
Well, that's cool that you have this archive.
Yeah.
And that thing's going to be here long after you're gone, and somebody will be culling through it, going, "Oh wow, look at this! What was going on then?"
The only shitty part about it is like you have to title everything, and so I mean I remember photographs and why I took it and where I was, that kind of stuff, more than I walk into a room and forget like what I walked in there for. So you got to go and like give them little titles, or the library district will go in there, and I'm good friends with the archivist there. Find through this, and that like they'll put, "Oh man, with this." I have a picture with. So when the BLM movement was going on, there was a group of the men of influence, I think, were downtown. It was, a bunch of black folks talking, just peacefully protesting and having conversations. But there was a guy across the street, catty corner. He was part of a militia group that had a sniper's nest set up and pointing, AR-15 at the crowd while they were talking. So I have a photograph of that. So I want to put, my point being, like a man with, submachine gun or whatever, pointing at a peaceful crowd or whatever. So I got to go back and do all that. But like being a living artist, I can, I have time to do all that. She said it could take 10 years. And because there's 1,000 photographs. So anyways, again, important to document. And like somebody goes back into history and be like, man, that's crazy. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's the time they were living in. Now, like, I don't know. At the time, it was really, really kind of crazy. But now it's like, seems more, fitting to our times. Hey, I'm Brian Tryon, and you're listening to the Tenet Podcast.
Last time we talked to you, you were still teaching at community prep, and you had started the Garfield Gallery, which was, a really cool concept and gallery, and you were showing some phenomenal artists and it felt like a lot of traction. What made you decide to step away from all that and go into this new avenue that you're at now?
Well, to be blunt and perfectly honest, the good principal I talked about before, who hired me at the school, left. We got some really bad principals. So I built everything there for the kids. So the basement in that place was just this place for kids to go and do drugs, have sex, whatever. It was just a dark place, besides the dark room, the bike shop, the music room, and my room. But the whole rest of the basement was just gross. And so I set that all up. And then Club Q happened. And there was a lot of stuff building up. It's a longer story. We could make a whole another show on it. But Club Q happened. One of the people that were shot that survived was a coworker of mine there that got fired when they did the mass firing of people. And so me and two other photographers were going to do our band photography. We're going to do a photo show. Me and my other friend were like, you know what? Let's show our pride work and our trans drag show work and, all that kind of stuff that we've done in the past. And then we'll give the money to the victims of Club Q. So anyways, we did that. And the photos there, the one principal that's there said he put it in a context. Well, he did. He said that it's grooming kids with art and using the big right wing terms of how trans people and drag queens and stuff were gross, and it was grooming kids with art, basically, kind of what they said. Now people can misinterpret that as like, we don't want that to school and blah 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 kind of stuff. So that happened, and I kept just getting all this. I just was like targeted for grooming kids with art, and then words were used like, some people could use this and say that this, and that you would potentially have to be registered as a sex offender maybe for this and this, so very right wingy, very Christiany, like weird shit went down. And then I already had a foot out the door. I kind of had an idea about doing Shutter and Strum, but I didn't know how to do it. I had no money. I had benefits at the school, blah, 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 but it was time. It was time to get out. There was a lot of stuff that built up to that. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I took a leap of faith and convinced my wife that I'm going to cash in my para, which is retirement in the school districts, put it into an IRA and start this place and do another part-time job, and this place would fund itself. And then I would make money on the side to pay for our, home bills. So, and anyways, I'm like, I want to do what I did at the school, provide it not only for the students at the school, but provide it for the community, and to keep, this stuff, art safe, and a safe place for the kids to come, and the community as well. And so I, just took that leap of faith and opened Shutter and Strum. I do everything here that I did at the school. And I work with, different youth in the community, work with CASA, which is the foster kid place in town. And I still get to work with the students from the school. They contract me, which is cool, because that was my big thing, was like, I stayed so long going, I was hired as an advocate. I'm supposed to advocate for these kids. And I'm like, I need to still do that somehow. So being able to open this place and it worked out the way it worked out, then I was relieved that I could still provide a safe space for the students as well. So that's it. Very short nutshell.
Well, I don't blame you there if things were
Yeah,
getting weird
it was bad. It was like an abusive relationship, and yeah, it wasn't good for my mental health. It was affecting probably my home life, everything, all the grossness of it. So, I was like, I'm going to do it here and see what happens. And here we are.
Yeah.
So essentially everything you're doing at community prep and with the Garfield Gallery, you're now doing with Shutter and Strum, but with no people telling you how you can and can't do things.
Right. So we have a gallery that's in here, it lives in here, called Disruptor Gallery, named Disruptor Gallery for a reason. And then just like, we had the gallery in the basement. We have a music studio, recording, you can record and learn instruments. I have the darkroom. I have which was my classroom now, it's shrunk down to a 10 by 10 room with the photo studio in it, and you can edit, print, scan, all that kind of stuff, and it's kind of slash my office space. We ran out of room here, so the people that own our building here, which are really rad people, couldn't do what I do without them being cool like they are. So they opened a space behind us, a big building, for just art studios. So we have a screen printing area over there, so students and people can learn screen printing. We added the screen printing element, and then we added, a safe community space for the community. I generally wanted to be in the Snob Hill neighborhood because it's always been like a red line area, a black hole where, the seedy strip clubs and the biker, tattoo shops, and now it's, transformed into more. But we have the Black Sheep across the street. We have our friends at the record store, and we're our own little DIY community and a safe community space to where, you don't have to feel pressured by any of this right wing ideology, this Christian ideology, and you can create, make art, and have a safe space to do it.
Yeah.
Has your mission changed or evolved from what you were doing at community prep to what you're doing at Shutter and Strum?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved. I'm still using the same mentality and the same. I don't think I'll ever stray from like the mental health piece of it. But we don't, it's not like we beat that into their head. Come in here and we do talk therapy, and we do, my CAC training, my addiction training was just another tool for my toolbox that, you're having an issue, we can talk through it. We get different resources, Narcan, COVID tests, Punk Rock Saves Lives comes around. to different shows. So we'll get, different health resources. We get donations, for, tampons and maxi pads and clothing and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm able to do here is add that element to having more resources, where I'm not going to be like, well, you can't have that in here, or that's not Christian, or that's not, whatever. So we've expanded on that too. And still the old school DIY philosophy of this is how I've always done it. Why reinvent the wheel? And then, just being that lifelong learner and learning more and trying to, add more tools to my toolbox to do what I do.
So are you a nonprofit, or are you a for-profit, or?
No, we're a for-profit. So I went to all my friends in the nonprofit world. We run it like a nonprofit. I mean, we're not profiting
right,
by any means. So I went to my friends in the nonprofit world, and they're like, you could run into the same problems. So right now, maybe just do it as an LLC, see where it goes. You can run into the same problem. You get a board of directors, even if they're friends or they're family, that can just not like what you're doing and stifle what you're doing and fire you and take over your dream or whatever.
Yep.
Long story short, I'm like, no, I'll keep it as an LLC for now, but we run it like a nonprofit. We rely on donations and grants, and I've used my retirement money and all that kind of stuff. And but we run it like it is a nonprofit, and maybe eventually we'll look into that. But then again, you run into oh, you're too political, or you're too this, or you're the stifling of it. And I just want it to be a cool place, as long as I can keep the doors open, to keep it this place. And, that's what that's what my main focus is. And my dream would be, we run it to where I go out and, you start learning a lot about the real world and these places that you think are doing a lot of good stuff for the community, and then you start finding out they're really not. They're all just for themselves. And, I learned a lot about that kind of stuff. So I learned what not to do. Yeah, I just want to continue and grow. We open it up to anybody who wants to provide workshops. We had a meeting here tonight for a housing association, stuff. We do different workshops. We do live shows. We do, if you wanted to come in with your group and have a safe space to have a meeting, we do that. So I've expanded a lot more on that stuff that I was restricted to at the school.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about nonprofits. If you get the wrong board, well, that's what happened. I worked for a civic education nonprofit, and the board ended up moving the endowment behind the CEO's back to a university, and then just devastating. Got rid of all the employees, kept the money, got rid of the program. So,
well, and you're seeing it more and more now too. The nonprofit banking on this whole misery of the world stuff, and I don't, and I don't want to get lumped into that. And like I said, there's options. Everything has a shelf life, but we'll ride the storm. And it's like, am I making rent this month? Am I making my bills at home? Am I, it's like I would rather have those worries than having the worries I had, like being stifled politically or religiously, where I was.
Right.
So are you the sole owner of
Shutter
Strum?
Yeah, I had a partner that did us dirty, so it's just me now. And what's rad though, I do have a color an intern because they don't get paid, but I pay them when I can, or with grants or whatever. But they run the gallery part, so they got to learn how to run a business. They manage the gallery part. They do all the networking, communication, and setting up the art shows and that kind of stuff. So that teaches them that kind of stuff, and they run that part. But I do all that stuff by myself and all the other stuff and the background stuff. So that's where I'm lacking with some of that, because I'm one person. So it's, that's been a challenge, but we've hopefully, and I need to kind of step aside some time. And I have a lot of trust issues because of the fact that I was burnt by that person I thought was going to be this great person, and wasn't. So there's a lot of trust issues, and again, you start learning who the real people are in the community and who are not the real people. So it's just a lot of trust issues in this. Like, I need to get out of my way sometimes, and maybe get some help, and that kind of stuff. So I'm learning. Again, it's that whole learning experience. So yeah, I'm basically running everything by myself, and then Lucy, who is the gallery manager, helps with the other stuff. But they just wrote a grant for us, and we got it, and that was their first. They learned how to write a grant, and it was a pretty prestigious grant. Not prestige, I don't know if that's the right word, but it was a cool learning experience for them that they can probably learn how to write grants now. So that was another learning tool and another resume builder for them.
Right on.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome, man.
So
Now,
yeah, that's the idea. We have some interns that come in and out. That's the part of it too. I want to, do that. Provide low cost of free programs too. But how do you do that and keep the doors open as well without the doors being open? You don't do that. So I got to learn to be, there's some of that DIY punk rock mentality. And I won't call it capitalism by any means, but you gotta make some money, too. So
yeah. No. So that's probably been one of the major challenges, right?
yeah,
Is just
yeah,
to, keep the doors open, fund
yeah,
it so that you can do the things that,
yeah.
you
And
have a
pay bills
vision
at
for.
home and that kind of stuff. So and it works out, but but it is, you're like, oh shoot, how am I, this month's looking sleek, and then sometimes, somehow it works out, and but yeah, we rely heavily on donations, clothing, musical instruments, art supplies, monetary stuff. I've been selling off my camera collection slowly to help fund it, that kind of stuff, using my dipped into my my retirement, that kind of stuff. So it's a labor of love, but I'd much rather be doing this.
Sure.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you're really proud of since you opened
Well,
Shutter and Strum?
I'm proud that we lasted the first, well, in October, it'd be 3 years we've been here, which is insane. I realized that today when I was talking to somebody. Just proud to be able to do what I've been always doing and I love and I'm passionate about, and providing that, giving it back to other people, and being, here for the community and being community minded, and not just saying I'm community minded and, hoarding whatever, knowledge or, money. Money's not the thing, but like just hoarding it and making my own, and expecting the pat on the back and look what I did kind of thing. But it's like, look what we did and look what we can do together kind of thing. That's what I'm really proud of.
Has the art community in general been pretty supportive of Shutter and Strum?
Yeah. So, Abby at Croy or Art Gallery now was a longtime mentor of mine. She gave me my first art show. Just we don't talk much because we're all busy now, but like, yeah, so she's all, they've been supportive. Cottonwood's been supportive. We collaborate with them. There's some people that aren't, but whatever. But yeah, for the most part, I've had people really like what we're doing and enjoy what we're doing, and supportive, even if we're all struggling. So, but it's supportive to the fact that, like, I know I can call up Abby and be like, hey, I got an issue, can I talk to you about it, can we have coffee? Or hey, I'm having a shitty day with this, can I, and I have people reaching out wanting to help and do stuff all the time. It's just, again, trying to get out of my own way and trusting people to help. But yeah, so it's been a real positive experience.
Right on. Your demographic is really these high school kids, or is it really open to anybody in the community?
So mainly we're a community art center, a small community art center that focuses on the marginal youth of the community, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Our bread and butter, like what I enjoy and passionate about, is working with the youth, but we are a community center too. So as far as like the community itself, adults, anybody can come in and use our services or do our workshops and, volunteer or whatever.
So who's mostly teaching your workshops? Are you getting people from the community in addition to yourself, or how does this work?
I became friends with a friend, Matt, who has a little screen printing co-op, is very involved in community-based stuff, helps with the screen printing. I do all the photography stuff and the art-related stuff. And I have another volunteer comes in and kind of just hangs out with some of the kids that, that just want to have a safe space to hang out. And then randomly we'll have somebody who comes into the workshop, or they'll host a open art thing or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I would like to have more of that kind of stuff, but right now we're in a kind of a comfortable spot with some of that. But we're always looking for volunteers and helpers, and and it's always weird to ask to me for me like, well, I can't pay you, but I haven't really I've ran into it a couple times, but like most of the time people are just willing to contribute, which is rad.
Yeah.
And then you have art shows just like you did at the Garfield on a
Yeah.
monthly basis?
Yeah, we're part of the art walk where, the first Fridays, we try to represent underrepresented artists or more, DIY artists or lowbrow, whatever term you want to put on it. But we also do some of the, the bigger names and stuff to where we're not opposed to any of that, but we want to want more of the risque art and the less represented art, people that can't get an art show or whatever. So that's what we focus on, and try to just make it a cool another spot on the art walks on First Friday.
And your dark room that you talked about that you built, how large of a dark room is it, and how many enlargers and that sort of thing? How many people can you put in there?
It's a modest dark room. At the school, I had a pretty big space. This space is like 12 by 12 ish or so. So I have a full sink in there, all the chemicals, the light boxes, all the everything you need. I have 3 enlargers in there now, and all that stuff. So it's definitely functional. Just when we do works every class, and I don't want large classes anyways, but like 4 or 5 people usually. It's a tight fit, but we can work around that. So it's cool. And the owner of the building painted it all black for us, and did the track lighting and did all this kind of stuff for us to make it where I didn't have to pay for all that stuff. So it worked out pretty cool.
Right on. And so can you do all formats in the darkroom?
Yeah, for sure. And then, I had a vision years ago too, before wanting to do this, where I was going to open community dark rooms all over the city. So I've collected and bought or people donated. I have, probably, I don't know, 30 enlargers, all the darkroom equipment, different stuff like that to do that. And then it was at the school. I finally got all my stuff from the school out of the darkroom. It was time. So I have it all in a storage space downstairs from us, which are downstairs from us is all band practice spots. So you got bands that rehearse and practice, and there's a couple recording studios. So that room right now is like overflow of art supplies and all the darkroom equipment. So yeah, I have everything you need I even have a full color darkroom set up that John at Cottonwood generously donated to me a while back. So yeah, I have everything you need for that. And I think I want to, sell off some of that stuff to keep this place going. But again, it's like people like to shoot film, and that's another reason I didn't. It was hard enough to get people to come to one dark room. I mean, trying to do it all over the city and multiple ones would have been a pain in the ass. So,
well, that's really cool, man. That you have this set up and that you actually have more supplies or more equipment than you're actually using.
Right.
So if you ever do expand, you definitely have it ready to go.
Yeah.
I actually met a kid. He had just moved. I think his handle on Instagram is Amish Punk. I don't know if he ever found you guys or not, but he was asking me about dark rooms, and they've kind of disappeared around Denver. And I said, well, you definitely have to come talk to you, Brian, and check out Shutter Strum. So he was super stoked. I don't know if he made it down there or not.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think so. I would have known the Amish Punk handle and stuff like that for sure. But yeah, that's the thing too. We offer the darkroom for community darkroom. And money is a conversation killer. It's like, oh, I have to pay for it. I'm like, yeah. I mean, so we do it like all the money that we make here, except the little bit I take from my bills at home or whatever, goes right back to the spot. It goes to free and reduced classes for kids. It keeps our doors open. So it's just a recyclable circle of like, so if an adult, rents the dark room or wants to, do workshops or X, Y, and Z, all that money goes back to the kids to, keep free and reduced workshop classes and just a safe space for them to come hang out.
Nice. I'm very impressed, and I have so much respect that you're doing this, that you turn this passion into this whole new entity and or have been able to make it fly. I mean, that's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, I need to get out of my way sometimes and have some drop the trust issue stuff a little bit, but it's getting there slowly. Sure, that's the whole learning process of this stuff too. So,
what are some of the recent artists that you've had in the gallery?
So right now we have one of my favorite photographers in town. He's also in the fashion world, so he collects old vintage mannequins. So he's got all these hedge portraits of all the several mannequins he has that he's made this clothing for, posed them, and then did like classic portraits of them, and then have all the backstory of like they were, one of the models they used for one of the mannequins was in the Star Trek movies. Some of them are old models, some old people that worked for these agencies. So he's got this very large, like 100 and something collection of mannequins that even some of these companies that produced them don't even have. So he's made his way into that part of the world. So we have that in the main gallery. We have a main gallery, then we call it a hall gallery, and then the rest of the hall part of it is all for student art or whatever, or just the junk we collect and stuff. So then we have Mark Warm, who actually volunteered for us and does cover for me when I need to go out of town. But he does photographs, and then he's a graphic artist by trade. He works in the screen printing business now, but so he's got some of his manipulated photographs in the hall. So that's a really cool show. And he's got a friend of his that does visual. So he did this cool black and white. We have this old vintage TV and VCR playing this looped visual with some sound too. He's a noise sound artist as well. So we've had that. We've had this guy named Ian Stewart in town. He did the graffiti on our murals on our building and at the record store. So he's got this really cool way of thinking where he does these whole we had a show where he was made of this fake pharmaceutical company and made all these fake products and did all the packaging for it. And it was like, these fake pharmaceutical stuff that you can take this pill and it'll give you 6-pack abs, or you can eat a weasel, and a weasel will come and grow in your intestines and your stomach and clean your system out. So it's this whole farce. They made up this whole company, and they came dressed as doctors and did a whole video around really heady, cool stuff. And a couple cool old legendary graffiti artists from Atlanta we've had that I met through chances of fate, scanning some of their work for a graffiti book. And we've had that. Denver, we've had one Denver artist. We've had some Pueblo artists that are amazing. Just a lot of really cool stuff, really impressive, just really cool, non-traditional artwork that you can't see really anywhere else in the city.
Yeah, you're offering something that a lot of the other galleries wouldn't show, right?
No, and and in the fairness to them, it's making rent, and these places are downtown where their rent's out of control, and they have to turn a profit, so we don't make money off the art gallery. So then we do, it goes back into art supplies or darkroom supplies for the kid. Or I have a couple of students that just come. They came for a couple of workshops, and I just let them come and hang out on Sundays and use our art stuff. So I'm not worried about, our money comes from other areas. So I guess I'm more fortunate where I don't have to rely on the gallery and artwork to make a living here.
Yeah, right on.
I'm not into that anyway. I'm more into the DIY, lowbrow, eclectic stuff anyways.
So you're not working off any kind of commission model with the exhibitions as far as if
we do. Yeah, we take, we're competitive. I hit up Abby and them, said, what do you guys charge for your commissions? And we do a little lower percent, not to cut their throats, but just a little lower anyway. So we make commission are $10 to $1,000 maybe, whatever, where it's not, the $3,000 pieces of the five, that's not our demographic anyways that comes in. I'm really proud too, though. I will say that when we do have the art shows, that people that do come, First Fridays come sometimes, as will tend to be, look, I'm being seen at an art gallery, but I'm not looking for the art, and I'm standing there in front of the art drinking wine or whatever. So the people that do come to us, we're more, we're kind of more of a destination spot. We're not downtown, so they do come and they're invested in the art. They come and look at the art and want to be a part of the art, want to talk to the artist about how and it's not. We've had some, very packed shows. Sometimes you don't, but you're able to connect more with the art and the artist here, which I'm really proud of.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. How far out are you booked as far as your exhibitions, and how do you find your artists that you show?
We're booked out. We try to be a year to 2 years. I like to keep little open spots and slots, and then opening up the hallway to having a second artist, or like we have an artist that is too big to fit in the main gallery. We have extra space. So we try to stay at least a year and a half out and keep little slots open for here and there. And then I don't know, there's people I'll just get turned on to when I look at their Instagram, or people will approach us, or we do a lot of headhunting. We just look at people's art and be like, hey, you want to do an art show? Or, I have, people are, hey, we're looking to do an art show. We'll do open calls every now and again, but not very often. It just works out pretty organically. Just, most of the time I just see somebody's art that I really, really, really connect to, or really turns me on, and I'll be like, hey, do you want to do an art show? And it works out. That's really mostly how we do it.
So this show that opens the day after this episode airs, talk a little bit about that show.
So we always have a spot here for students art, and mostly it's in the hallway, but we wanted to focus on, we do a pride show every year too. It's themed, just for the pride community. And then this one we wanted to make it all just for the art students. So we put an open call out for students between 14 and 18. We did do by they came in and talked to us. We have a little younger artists, a couple little younger artists that are going to do some art for us too. So we opened up to 2 to 6 pieces from each student. One piece as we would like. We didn't, we don't want to stifle Tony, but we wanted it to be more conscious of what's going on in the world or in their world. And then, we're opening up. They have the whole gallery, so it's going to be their show all on First Friday, not just another artist that is being shown, and they can go look at the art in the hallway. This is going to be all featured young artists from around the city. We did an open call, and we got a pretty good response. And and I will say, some of these students and these kids we're working with were a little bit easier to work with than the professional artists that we work with, as far as getting stuff to us on time and being, prudent about like answering their emails and stuff. So yeah, we're really excited about this. There's some really cool young artists in the community here that really talented, and just to give the kids confidence, give them a place to show their art, be able to talk about their art, be proud about what they're doing, and learn the business of it too. Like, okay, how do you sell yourself to a gallery? How do you present yourself to a gallery? How do you you can use this now. We showed at Shutter and Strum, so they have something under their belt to like maybe approach other galleries with. So that's the other factor of it too, is learning the art world, learning how do you present yourself as an artist, how do you frame your art, how do you not frame your art, how do you hang it, how do you wire it, every little detail. It's not just, okay, we're having this fun, cool, kitschy student show. There's some seriousness in it as well that they'll learn and they'll benefit from for, hopefully they, pursuing their art career.
Yeah, that's amazing experience right there.
And the name of the show?
Yeah, so the name of the show is South, like the direction, Sight, SIGHT, student art show. I think most students have about 6 pieces, ranging from 3D art to photography to acrylic art to digital art. So we got a really, really cool eclectic palette from these students, and we're really excited to see how they react to it. We did have a show here a while back with I think it was a queer Girl Scout group, and they had a show here, and they just took the gallery over for a day. It was in June of last year, and they got to have the hors d'oeuvres and show off their art, and we transformed the art gallery into their space. And so it's cool to watch see their confidence, because man, that's nerve-wracking. I hated doing art shows as far as like my anxiety levels, and it gets to see them being proud of something, and get seeing like I said, it's not just, oh, how cute they're doing art, they're kid, it's a serious art show. It's a real art show, and get to see them react to it and talk about their art and see what it's like to be in the art world.
That's really
amazing.
cool, man.
Yeah.
And that show, the student show, runs through the end of April?
Yeah, it'll open on First Friday, and the week before the next First Friday we do outtakes. So yeah, it'll be the month long. And then we also offer artists too, if like, hey, you want to keep a couple pieces here, we have room, we'll keep some pieces here for you. So we may even, ask those artists if they want to put their favorite piece in the hallway or all the pieces or something. So they have, a platform to still show their art even after the art shows. So.
Oh, that's cool.
And so moving forward, what is your vision for Shutter and Strum?
Well, first and foremost, when getting that grant is going to help us survive this year a little bit, or be closer than what we thought we were going to be. Just keep plugging along through this year. Have more community events. We do community potlucks. We do community meetings. We do community movie nights. We do different noise shows, experimental music. We've had a punk rock show here. Just continue in a community space and safe space and grow on that and ride the wave and see. I'd love to do some expansion. I thought about Pueblo. I mean, I know there's a need for this. There's a need for this in a lot of different places, but big vision stuff would be able to have maybe another space, maybe another city or something like that. And just continue growing on that and having more. Marketing is a huge thing. So working on how do you market in the world we live in now and getting more eyes on the space and just having a space that the community can come and we can give back. We do food drives and clothing drives and blanket drives for the unhoused community and just keep expanding on that kind of stuff. Maybe we've outgrown the space and, there's room to talk to our landlord here that's always looking for other spaces, and I don't know, that's big vision stuff, but right now just getting through this year. And so with that grant, we're going to do a music project called Amplify the Silence. So it's you're using music for trauma, addiction, whatever, is your hardships of life and using it to learn an instrument. You can, the whole idea would be the kids will come in, we'll do an open call. Kids will come in, they'll learn either to play an instrument, they'll learn how to record a song or an album. They'll learn how to package it, how to do the merch for it, like do their own t-shirts. We work with my friend's record label. It'll be on their record label, their music, whether it's a compilation or a single piece from them. Our friends who are recording studio people will come in and help them record. We have a mental health person who I used to work with at the school is going to come in and do some mental health work if needed. And then, we'll show them the whole deal of like start to finish of how to make an album, or if there's a kid that doesn't want to play music or doesn't know how, they can help learn how to record or how to do the merch for the show. And then the idea at the very end would be our friends at the record store will do a live show and a performance with the kids that push it through and make it through to doing it. And we'll do a live show with them to sell their merch and all that kind of stuff.
Ooh, man, that sounds awesome.
It's a big endeavor. I think we could pull something off, but we did one when we first opened through photography, and that went really well, using photography for trauma and addiction and stuff. So, so the grant will help with that. And, we're excited about that. So that's the big focus now is the big focus and drive would be to do that. We're going to be doing something cool with, I don't know if you've heard of Shadow Gathers. She's a photographer up in Denver. She's going to come down in June and do some cool stuff here. We're still trying to plug that out. So we're just trying to do really more stuff that you just don't normally get and see in, the normal downtown setting or stuff like that. So that's our main focus right now. Just get through this year and, see what happens next year.
Fantastic, man.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah. Do you have any of your personal work that you're going to be showing this year? Anything on the books?
So I feel weird about that. I always feel like, I don't know, that seems weird to me, but that's just shit in my own head. But I do on a regular basis here because what do you do with all the old artwork that you don't sell from art shows? And there's quite a bit of it. So I do hang some of the pieces and move them around. But I've been having the idea of doing a photography show. And, I don't know if I'd be the main focus, but at least do it in the hallway or something like that. And I do plan on doing that. And Lucy's a very talented artist, so they've been able to do their own art show. And so to answer your question, I felt weird about doing it, but I think I'm getting over that weirdness, and I think I do want to do a photography show. I have an idea based on it, and kind of I want to do me a little bit. You get into this, and you get into a small business, and you do a lot where you're doing a lot of other stuff, and you're not doing you. So it would be a good way to get me to, out and do me a little bit too.
For sure. Man, I'm so excited about what you're doing.
Thank you.
I've not been unfortunately.
You guys are always invited.
Yeah, you always send me the invites, and I appreciate that. So I'm really going to try to make it to First Friday in April to check out the student show and come down and check out
That would be rad.
all the stuff you have going on down there.
And then you had texted me a while back about getting together on some stuff, and it's still in my head, about trying to make a difference in doing other stuff. What you texted me about. So yeah, it's still always in the back of my head too. So.
Mine too, and that was just the spur of the moment. Like,
no, I get it.
I was amped and wanting to put together some people that I thought would be a good fit. So.
And I'm always down too. Yeah. So that's, and I have not forgot about it. Just I think it'll happen organically, and it'll happen when it needs to.
Right on. Well, let's keep in touch. I hope to see you First Friday in April.
Cool.
Anything else that you want to mention or promote before we let off this evening?
No, you can always look at our website, which we have somebody who's going to volunteer to redo it for us. But we try to keep up on that with our activities that's going on and who and what we're all about. We have a GoFundMe that we started that helped open the place. It's still out there. We're always looking for monetary donations. Always looking for, used cameras, computer stuff, art supplies, volunteer your time. And, let's do something cool together on that end, follow our socials. We have a Facebook, but, what I usually do is I just put our Instagram stuff onto the Facebook. Instagram is always a good place to know what we're up to, not worry about the algorithm, actually go to our page and look at it. We have a link tree on there too, and also on our website to how you can, sign up for volunteering, signing up for workshops, signing up, if kids want to do, get involved, that kind of stuff. So that's on there too. But just keep an eye on us and tell your friends and come in and check us out. Even if it's just you want to come out and listen to music and just have a safe space, or you want to go do a photo walk, or just get out of your head a little bit. We're all about that too.
Nice.
If people want to donate to your GoFundMe, is that still?
Yeah, that's it's on our link tree too, on our Instagram. And it's also on our website as well too. So, or if you just want to do a private donation too, you could do we do Venmo and PayPal, or not PayPal, but Cash App, or you can come in and talk to us or whatever.
Nice,
right on. Wes, you got anything out this?
No, man, this has been a great couple hours just sitting here talking with you. I always enjoy the conversations. You're and I love the things you're doing in your community and how you're engaged in, educating kids, whether it's with photography and just helping them out, because I think that's so important. And a lot of these poor kids are just left up to their own devices and really need some help. So I'm glad people like you are doing what you're doing.
Well, and there's no investment anymore, especially where the world is. We're beating that dead horse, but where's the investment for these kids? There's really not, So that's what we want to keep going, And I'm really big, and just to say too, I'm a really big fan of what you guys do, and I'm just really honored to you guys asked me to be on here.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. And anytime you want to be on, just let us know. We'd love to have you.
Sick. So. All right. Sounds great, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian, so much for carving out time for us this evening.
For sure.
From your family. And like Wes said, I second all that. Yeah, I really appreciate all the things that you're doing in your community there. And I have the utmost respect.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, guys.
Yeah.
Again, follow Shutter and Strum on Instagram at Shutter_and_Strum, and check out the Shutter and Strum website at shutterandstrum.com. And don't forget to check out Brian's magnificent work on his Instagram at Brian Tryon. Shutter and Strum's next exhibition, South Site, featuring the work of high school students from around the region, opens Friday, April 3rd. Shutter and Strum is located at 2217 East Platte Avenue in Colorado Springs, Colorado. As usual, I will have all this and more in this week's episode notes. For the Tenant Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown. Have a great week.